and thanks a lot to Maxon for having us here today at the IBC 2023. My name is Daniel, and I'm joined here today by Niko, and we are currently developing a video game since roughly a year and prototyping it. And today we want to give you a quick overview about how the game development workflows between Cinema 4D and Unreal Engine 5 are working. So Niko and I have been working in the as a creatives at the film, TV, and advertising agents industry for about 20 years, and we want to kick off the presentation with a showreel of recent work. All right, so yeah, we've been doing a lot of linear work in the past, and now it's our first real stint to do something truly interactive and build a video game, which is pretty exciting and pretty daunting at the same time, because we're currently facing a lot of technical challenges we haven't been aware of before, and we're also talking about a pretty long timeline. But luckily, if you have been using Maxon for a long time, there's a lot of transferable skills you can actually use to make your life way easier inside the Unreal Engine. When it comes to creating assets, 3D modeling, texturing, lighting, rigging, animation, all this kind of stuff transfers very nicely to Unreal Engine. And a few words about the game. So the genre is a Metroidvania, which I haven't known before what it means actually. So it's basically a fancy name for a side-scrolling platformer with a lot of puzzles. So you move a stone here and there a door opens and a lot of combat. And the story is about our little hero character, which is a bird-sized cannon which hatches out of an egg and is born into a forest and doesn't know it can't shoot. And it basically goes on a self-discovery journey to fight the big evil cannons which are destroying the forest. It comes from the German saying to shoot with cannons as sparrows, which is basically saying you use way too many resources for a very tiny problem. And yeah, let's have a look at some gameplay. Cute cannons actually exist. Okay, so we created all the assets for the game inside Cinema 4D, and a big part of a forest are obviously trees. And I wanted to have a procedural setup I can use as long as possible before actually merging everything down into polygons and bring it over to Unreal Engine. And let's have a look at the setup. Okay, so I used the most blinds to generate a huge variety of different setups. So just by changing a few values within the most blind, you can actually very quickly create something which resembles a tree trunk and add a bit of random effectors to make the shape, the general shape, a bit more interesting. The next thing I've done is created another mouse spline which faces downward, so it assembles a root, and then I cloned that along the original trunk to get a bunch of different roots. Added another random effector just to create a bit of variety, and then scattered them around the original spline. Cool. So with that setup, I would just go ahead and chuck that all into a volume measure. A volume builder. So you get this, and then cut off like just the tips of the roots because they are under the earth anyway, so I don't need them. Mesh everything, and then eventually put all that in a remesher to get like a real nice topologized tree with only quads I can work with. The next thing is, so I always do a little bit of manual labor on the trees just to get a bit more definition. So what I would do is go under meshes, brushes, and grab myself a inflate brush, and then I would just go ahead and brush a bit of extra detail along the tree. If I hold down the middle mouse button, I can just quickly resize the brush. And if I hold down Control, I can actually reverse it and indent the tree. And that way you can really quickly create a bit more of an interesting shape of the tree. And I also added a displacer deformer just so to get a bit more like breakup of the surface. So what I get is this then, and I added a landscape just to have a ground, and I wanted to have some vines dangling down the tree because it's a forest, it's a swampy-like forest, to make it just look a bit more interesting and visually appealing. So both the tree and the ground will get a collider tag because I'm using dynamic ropes to actually simulate the vines and have them fall down from the top onto the tree. So what I've done is a helix. The advantage with the helix is that it has evenly distributed points, and that makes up for a really nice topology later on. I put those in a cloner, added the rope tag to the cloner, and put a bit of random rotation on it and some gravity. And now when we press play, we can see that, hopefully, yeah, the splines fall down, and within a few minutes, I have some really nice vines which are not intersecting. So if I would now go ahead and just convert that cloner and merge all the helixes together, like this. Where did it go? Ich glaube, ich habe das gerade. Sorry. Part of the live demonstration. So let's try that again. Current state to object. Grab the cloner and say connect objects and delete. All right, there we go. And now I can just put that into a sweep NURBS and add a end side to give it some thickness. And if I now zoom in, you can see that's really nice, even distributed topology, and there's no overlaps at all. All right, so the only thing left to do to get it into Unreal Engine is to quickly go into the project settings and check in Cineware that the Save Polygon cache is enabled. And then the only thing you need to do is hit save. Let's save out a different version, just to be sure. And then we jump right into the engine, where I have prepared just like an empty level with a bit of light in it. And if you want to bring in your assets into the Unreal Engine, there's just one thing you need to make sure is if you go into plugins and type in Cineware, that you have the latest version of the Cineware plugin installed. If not, go to the Maxon website, just download it and install it. It's pretty easy. And then you just hit the plus button here, go into Datasmith, File Import, and browse to your file you just created. Choose a folder to save it into or import it into, and then hit import again. Wait a few seconds.
Don't worry about the percentage. It's not taking.
Yeah, it's not going to take like. All right, there we go.
Here we are.
All right, cool. And now we are greeted with the model we just created. And if I spin the light around, it's exactly what we created in Cinema 4D, and just with a few clicks brought over to Unreal Engine. Okay, so I've did the same thing with a few birdhouses we needed to create for our game. So let's quickly jump into Cinema 4D and check out the scene file. Cool. So basically what I've done is just created a few single assets, like a few doors and sidewalls, a few hinges, and some roofs. And the best thing actually to work either in Cinema or Unreal Engine is to work with instances, just to keep your data amount low and the performance high. And so you best do it like IKEA and assemble everything later in the engine. And the cool thing is, so I painted all the individual assets before in Adobe Painter, then brought them back into Cinema 4D and set up Redshift materials. So I could create now all the marketing materials and all the trailer renderings in Cinema 4D. And at the same time, if I export that just as I did with the trees before, I can just bring it into Unreal Engine, and it looks exactly the same. I can just start, designing my levels. So when you put that all together in actual birdhouses, you get something like this. So all I've done is created a few more different boards and assets, and then assembled those together into like a variety of different birdhouses. So the cool thing is Unreal Engine has like a capsule where you can just combine geometry and then later on add additional functions to it. They call it blueprints. So I basically took all the birdhouses or the singular assets and assembled them inside this blueprint. And what I can then do is go into something Unreal Engine calls the construction script, which allows me to drag individual pieces into this graph and then set them up in a way that I can like add functionality to the individual blueprints without having to set up like a each one differently if I want to, for example, like apply materials or change the meshes interactively. So for this one here, I just go ahead and go into my material folder, birdhouses, materials, where I have set up a variety of materials and say I want to have the front of this birdhouse here. Okay, just jump back. Sorry, give me a second. All right. So I just wanted to change the front of this birdhouse here into a different material. I can just drag and drop the material on here, and then let's say I would like to have another material, but with the metal on the side, I can just drag it in here and maybe choose a different metal for the front. And in that way, you can just very, very quickly create a huge amount of assets, which are all based on the same few models I assembled at the beginning. So that makes it very effective. And with that, I hand it over to Niko, who's telling you something about the character creation workflow in Engine.
Yeah, let's jump right into trying to create a playable character within 20 minutes now. So let's go back to Cinema 4D. What I've done so far, or what I have prepared, are some loops of a character. Now let's see where I can find them here. It's working slightly different. Now here. So I've created this character in Adobe Modeler, and I've done some pieces or some loops for different animations. Here, for instance, we see the walking animation. I have a running animation as well, and very important is the idle animation, which is here we go. Which is just for standing without doing anything, and the character is just breathing. So these are my all animations I actually need for creating a animated character within the engine and make it playable even. But even if this is just a very peaceful NPC, so a non-player character, let's just jump into it and make a little attack just to be able to defend himself. Oops. Here we go. As a base, I take the first frame of the idle animation, and I'm just jumping in and making some tweaks and changes here. So hopefully everything is a little bit different on this computer. So now. I never used to be, or I've never learned to be an animator, actually. So, but I'm kind of, a sports guy. I'm a karate teacher. One of my passions is karate. So I know the movements in a way. So I know where the limbs belong, where the leg belong at a certain amount of time. So this is how I'm animating, looking at my own body and moving myself. And this is the same thing we do right now. So I'm doing a kick. It's called a yokogiri. It's a side kick in karate, and we try to make it very quickly here. So first things first, let's move the torso to the side. So let's go ahead and just move some frames here, just 5, 6 frames, that's okay. And let's move the torso first. So our character is moving this way. One of the first things you learn in karate is that you should always look at your opponent. So move your head towards the direction you want to kick. And the next thing is we should rise our left feet in this case. Let's go here. Left leg, rise it towards our knee. Like so, it's looking kind of strange still. So let's correct the torso height, and even let's bring the center of gravity above our heels. So this is how it should look like, and the left leg, here it is, should be turned that way, and the foot goes this way. So this is already a quite good pose for the beginning. Let's keep the arms under control. So let's just take the arm, bring it to the side. Let's bring the pole. I haven't exposed it here, but I find it very quickly. Oh, where is it? Here. So select element, bring the pole of the elbow back a little bit, and do the same thing with the left arm. So where's my left arm? Where is it? Here we go. Left arm, bring it to your hip as well, like so. Bring it a little bit back, and again, let's correct the pole position of our elbow here. Here we go. Bring it out. So this is how the first pose should look like when you do yokogiri. Just go ahead, just a couple of frames, and actually do the kick. Again, first things first, let's rotate the hip. Let's bring it a little bit forward, so stretch it out, like so. Let's get the left leg again. Bring that out as well. Oh, we just forgot to turn our right foot. So in karate, you should turn on your heel. In this case, the squirrel is standing on its toes, so we turn on our toes in this case. So this is not looking very cool. So we stretch out our movement a little bit more, like this. Take the left leg, stretch it even further. Rotate. So it should look like this. In karate, you should hit with the side of the foot. So this is looking right. And now let's just correct our arms. So keep it in control as well. And the right arm should go with the kick to the front. So this is nearly all we need to do here. What I'm doing as well is just to copy this last keyframes to make it a little bit more snappy at the end. So when you perform this kind of kick, it should look like a little bit snappy. In this case, I just copy paste this one keyframe, just one or two frames further, and copy my other keyframes to get the backwards animation again. So I've prepared it, and I even added some kind of extra animation to it when it comes to the tail, for instance, or the ears. So to make it a little bit more dynamic, I have some extra animations here when it comes to the tail. So let's jump right into the Unreal Engine and look what we have to do to make it interactive. Here we go. Now I have created another level here, skills, blueprints, no, maps first. Here we go. So here we go. I set up a test level where it integrates just the floor and some walls and the player character, which is represented by this little icon here. The player character itself is represented by two kind of blueprints. So there are two kind of blueprints which are interacting with each other. So I have my main blueprint here. I open it up very quickly. This is responsible for setting up all the movements. So I have this is a component which is ready-made, so I don't have to dive into it. I don't have to program it. This is some component, where I can set all the things I need for the movement, like the acceleration of my character, or my maximum speed, or the height I want to jump. So this is all set up here. Even the controls are set up here. I can't go into detail right now, but afterwards, when someone will have any question, I can answer that. It's not very complicated, and it's based on the default character which comes with the engine already. So I've just changed a couple of things here. Going back here, and there's another component which is or another blueprint, which is the animation blueprint. This is the blueprint where I put all the animations in, and which is getting the information from the main character blueprint to actually move. Let's see what's happening when I press play right now. So when I want to play this game right now. So right now I only have imported the character, I show it in a second, and put it into this main blueprint. So my character can already move. So this is what the engine is doing for me. So I can move my character, but the character is not doing what it should do. So let's head back. Oh, my mouse. Here, now it's back again. So let's see what we need to do to animate my character. So first of all, I've imported all this animation we have seen before in Cinema 4D into the engine. To do so, in contrary to what Daniel has shown you before, I can't just use the Cineware plugin. I need to export it by exporting an FBX. And there's a special little thing, so not everything is working fluidly, so you have to, there's one thing you have to keep in mind when doing it. When I'm working with it, I'm setting up some kind of reference stuff here, like the floor or the lights and so on. But when I exported it to Unreal, I only need the geometry and the bones. So I select those, go here to export to my FBX settings first. I check this selection only, and I need to change the version of it. So this is very important because Unreal has problems to read the last versions of FBX files coming from Cinema 4D. So you have to change it to the version 7.5 here. And then you just can export it, give it a name, save it, and done. Now you can just import it into your engine, like just by dragging it in. Like, let's take something I haven't imported yet, like the turn, for instance. It's already successfully imported, so there's one window missing, but that doesn't matter. So he asked me if I want to import the geometry or just the animation. As soon as I already have imported the right geometry, I only need the information from the keyframes. So he's only reading the keyframes to get the information for the animations. So this character is only imported once, and all what you see here are representations of the animations, not the actual model. So I can open it up and you can see what's happening here. This is just a jump start animation, for instance, or here I have the turn animation or other animations like walking and so on. So these are all based on one character and one geometry. What do we have to do to make it actually moving in the right way? I have mentioned this other blueprint here. Let's jump right into it. And all we have here is one output. This output is just outputting something which I don't have set up yet. I have something here prepared, I come to it later on. Or let's have a look at this, what it's actually doing. So this is a so-called state machine. When I look in here, these are different states. So here I have my idle state, so when the character is just standing there and breathing. I have a movement state, a jump state, and a jump loop state. And this blueprint here sets up some rules. So when do my character move or changes the state from idle to move, for instance? So let's set it up very quickly to get a little bit better of an understanding what's happening here. So first of all, what we need to do is dragging out something and setting up a so-called default slot. This default slot is just there to be overwritten. So it's just a slot, which later on can be overwritten by some special things like the kick I've already done. So when I want the character to kick, this is a special event. It's not in here in the state machine. This should override this default slot. After that, I just create a new state machine. You can just go in here and write state machine. And now I have it here, and I enter the state machine here. So the only thing I've got here is just an entry. By dragging out, I can just add another state. I call it idle in this case. And it's just a name. It still doesn't know what to do right now. So we have to set it up in a way. So let's double click here. Let's jump right into it. And again, I have an output. So it's doing nothing but outputting anything what I want to do. So on the right-hand side here, I have an asset browser. He automatically shows me all the assets I have imported here. It's the same thing like I have in the content browser, but to make it a little bit more comfortable, it's right here on the right-hand side, and then I already can see some kind of previews showing me what kind of animations we are talking about here. So the only thing I need to do is just to drag in the idle animation here and connect it with my output. So this is all I have to do to set up this idle state. So the idle state has now an animation, and let's see what's happening now when I play the game. Press play. Now we can see that the characters are already standing in the right direction, and when I move my character, it's actually looking right, but the animation just have played once. This might be because, now get back to my, here we go. Because I haven't set up a looped animation here. So let's quickly click this node, go in here on the right-hand side, and there should be, under the details panel, a checkbox which says loop animation. This is the only thing I have to do to make it loop, right? So, we want the character to move, not just standing there and breathing. So let's get back to our state machine and add another state here. So again, we drag out something, add another state, call it move. Come on, now. And we do the same thing like before. We go into the move state with a double click, and we add some movements to it. So in this case, I don't want to just make him walk. I want the movements be dependent on how fast he walks. So I create something which is called a blend space. So I create a blend space here. By right-clicking, I can go into animation. In this case, legacy. I'm using a quite old system here, so I like to use this basic stuff. So I go into blend space, create a blend space based on my character I've already imported. So I choose the character I want to make a blend space of. And in this case, I just double click here, and this here on the bottom is my blend space. Now I can drag in some different animations. Like in this case, I want to use the run animation, and I want to use the walk animation. So on the left-hand side, I now have the walk animation, and on the right-hand side, I have the run animation. And by dragging with control, I can blend between those two states. So this is what Unreal provides for me. So it's just importing the keyframes of the animation, but all the interpolation is done in Unreal. So it's totally independent from how many frames I've set up in Cinema 4D, or where the keyframes are sitting, or if everything is correct, or it's too slow or too fast. I can change it later on here in Unreal. So let's just bring in the maximum amount of this maximum value here. This is some information we got from our main, maybe you remember, the main blueprint here. So where I've set all the acceleration and speed and so on. So I need this information, how fast my character is. I know, because I remember I set it up to 1750. So I just put in the same value here as my maximum value, 1750. Enter. And now I have just dragged my running animation to the left, save it, and we are done for the blend space thing. Let's get back to our state, to our movement state. Now I can choose my blend space I've just created here, drag it in, Same thing, connected, and we are nearly done. The only thing we need is an input value. So I've talked about the speed. He needs the information for how fast should he run. And I won't go into too much into the detail here right now, but I have set up some variables. These variables are fed by this main blueprint. And I can just drag it out here, just the ground speed variable, get ground speed, and connect it to the input of my blend space. This is nearly all I need to do. There's one more thing. The state needs to know when he should be entered. So we have to tell him when he should enter the state. In this case, we have this little dots here, which is standing for the transition. And by double-clicking on it, again, we have some kind of result or output, and we have to set up some kind of a rule. This is quite easy because I have this ground speed here already as an variable. Get the ground speed and say, okay, whenever the ground speed is higher than 0, so actually when we are running, we should run. So this is quite logical. So I drag it out here, say, where is... Weißt du, wo kleiner Grader?
What are you looking for?
I can just type grader, so that's okay.
Okay.
Now I have the grader node here, and as soon as our ground speed is greater than 0, we can enter this transition. So this is all I need to do here. Save it, and let's have a look what's happening now. We enter our game again. Here we go, and you see my character is running nearly perfectly. Maybe I have to balance it a little bit better, so the speed is a little bit off. But when I'm stopping, I still have, he's not stopped walking, so he's still walking. I have to fix that very quickly. And this is done by just, again, going back into here, by setting up a rule for stopping. So I drag out another arrow here towards this direction, double-click here, and I set another rule. The rule is the opposite what I have done before. So I have to set up, now it's less or equal 0, right? So as soon as my ground speed is less or equal 0, we want to stop. So compile. Let's have a look. Right, now I can run. And the character also stops. So, and he's back into his idle animation. I even can already jump, but when I'm jumping, the character keeps running because I don't have set up a rule for jumping. So this is, I don't want to go into detail here. Right? Oops, here we're back again. And this is where I'm just showing you the finished state machine here. I just reconnected it here. And this is where, or why this looks like I have shown you before. I've set up a simple rule when he should jump. The rule in this case looks like he asked me if he's falling. So is falling is something which is also provided by the information by the main blueprint. So whenever the character is in the air, it's falling. So when it's falling at the same time, we got a velocity on the vertical axis, which is greater than 100, then it should enter the jump state. Nearly the same when we keep falling and not actually jumping up anymore, but we are still in the air. I have another rule here which says, okay, is he still falling? Yes, and is the velocity lower than 100? This is the rule for he's still in the air. We need some kind of wiggling animation and until we hit the ground again. So let's have a look how it looks like when I actually connect this state machine with my game here. So now I can run in both directions, and I can jump, and he starts, after a while, he starts to wiggle with his tail. So this actually is nearly a completely set up character, but we have animated a Yokogiri, right? So we want to make him attack something. So let's just jump back. This is done a little bit differently because this is a special event. So I need to set up a special button on my controller, on my keyboard. So this is what we do next. This is quite easy. So we just have to enter here our project settings. On the left-hand side, here is the input settings. And we just need another action binding. It's a so-called action binding. So whatever you press, there should be some kind of output. So just give it a name here. We call it kick. And just activate this little keyboard sign here. And whenever I press a button now, he's setting up exactly that button. In this case, I want to have the left control button for the kick. And now everything is set up already. I just need to build a special little blueprint, or I connect some noodles, how we call it, to make him kick at the end of the day. So I go in here, and now I'm searching for this input I just set up. It's called kick. Now here it is. This is my input node. And the only thing I have to do now is to create, to take this animation I've done here. So here's my Yokogiri. And I couldn't connect it directly because my blueprint is not reading this sequences. I could do it, but it has, but doing it in another way, I will show you, brings a lot of advantages, like combining sounds with it, or visual effects, or whatever you want to tell him, except from just the animation. And you can do that by just creating something which is called create an animation montage. You just have to right-click here, go to create, and create an animation montage. This is all you have to do, so nothing more to do here, just create another symbol here. And let's quickly go into our character. And now we can just connect this with this montage. Just type montage. Choose this first play montage node here. And we need some inputs here. The first one is we need to give him the information which mesh or which geometry should be influenced by this montage. In this case, it's just our main character, and I can choose the mesh here from my main character drop-down menu here, and just drag it in and connect it to my skeleton mesh here. The only other information is what montage he should play, and this is the one we just created. This is this Yoko montage we've just created here. Pull-down menu, you can also drag and drop it. When you have more monitors than one, you can drag and drop everything like here. So, and this is nearly everything we have to do. Just compile it, and let's see what's happening when we play it now. We can run, we can jump, and we can kick now. It's a little bit slow, but as I said before, I can go into my back here. I can go in here, and for instance, here I have the option to set a certain play rate. For this, I will set it to 1.5, and it already looks much better when I kick. So it's much more energetic, and I still can run. One more thing maybe, because I can run here and I can jump, and I can, while I jump, I can attack, right? This looks kind of okay, but maybe we need this typical karate iconic kick in the air, you know? And I just show you how fast you can just change an animation and bring it back into the engine and set up a slightly different rule to make that happen. So let's go back to Cinema 4D. And we only change one thing here. I only take the right leg, bring it up, turn the foot slightly. And this is all. I just copy this keyframe again. So this is all I need. Select my both things I want to export. Go to export, FBX file. Oh, just hold on. I just have to make the sequence a little shorter, like 30 frames. So that's it. Export, FBX file. I overwrite this one, Yoko Tobegiri is it's called. Replace it, yes. Back in the engine. Just import this animation here. Maybe I've already done it. No, I've not. So let's go to my FBX file here. Just drag and drop it in here. Now he's asking me, if I want to import the mesh. I don't want it, I just want the animation, and I want it to combine with the skeleton mesh of this character. So let's import it. Here we go. Oh, I have to stop it. Do I have imported it yet? No, it's not here, right? Once again, I just forgot to stop the game. One more time. Here we go. Yoko Tobegiri hears it. Now we can just, again, create an animation montage. Now I have the second one. I jump quickly back into my main blueprint here. Just copy-paste this one, like so. I can take the same output to connect it with my skeletal mesh. And I set a very simple rule, which says, or which asks if we are moving on the ground. So I just type is moving on ground. And we build a little branch here, which is kind of a if-then question. I'll connect it with this input. Now I have a true or false. So whenever this is true, whenever I'm moving on the ground, I should take the first one. And in the case I'm not moving on the ground, I want to play another montage. This is the second one, the Yoko Tobegiri. And I simply connect it with this one. So I have a rule, and I have a question, and I have two options here. So going back, playing my game, again, all the things are running fine. I can jump, I can kick, and now I can jump and kick in a different way. So yeah, that's all from my side. So maybe you would do some words.
Yeah, just quickly jump back into the presentation.
Just a second, maybe one like that.
Yeah.
I've created the characters in Adobe Modeler in VR, and this is an older version, kind of. So if you're interested in how I build it up, we can talk later. But this is maybe a funny side fact. That's because nobody is actually using VR modeling or VR sculpting for professional. You too? Great. So we had cool. Yes.
All right, great. Yeah, thanks for listening. If you want to know more about the game, just scan the QR code. Then you can either wishlist it or join us on Discord and just get involved, play around with some ideas, or download a demo. And we have the booth over there as well. If you have any questions, want to talk to us, and thanks for listening.